Are you prepared to stand trial and profess your guilt or innocence before the seven?
We need to trust each other. We have so many enemies now.
The Freys and the Lannisters send their regards.
What do you want?
I thought you knew what I wanted.
Tell him what you did to her. Tell him!
Are you afraid? Good. You're in the great game now. And the great game is terrifying.
Hey guys, P. Peppers here. That was the episode 10 for season 6 trailer that I just had in the beginning, and we're going to break it down. So we'll see, what to expect in this season finale. Last night we had the Battle of the Bastards, and we know what's going on in the north and what is going on in Marine, and so now we'll see what's going on in King's Landing, at least by the way we start out. And as you know, like, most of the episode 9s are the big crazy action, but the season finales have a lot of, tying up loose ends, and there have been some pretty crazy things that have happened. So let's see what we have here. Our first image is of Cersei in her quarters in the Red Keep here. She's getting ready, and we have to imagine it's for her trial. Not much she has to do. She's pretty much cut off from everybody, and she's just scheming a way to get out of this. Now, we'll talk about in the predictions later a little bit more about that, but for now she's obviously going to face her trial. So now we have a couple quick shots of Marjorie getting ready, and then we have Tommen getting ready, and we're expecting they're also going to the trial. And we have this super shot of the High Sparrow getting ready, and then we see that what this looks like. You can see that the public's there. We have 7 church clergy who will be judging the trials, and like I said, we can only just guess, but it seems like they're going to do all of them in one big spectacle, clean some house. And it's hard to tell where all the different characters are going to end up as far as things go, but the one thing to keep in mind is that the High Sparrow definitely seemed like he wanted Marjorie and Tommen to have a child, because that keeps the Faith Militant in power. That's, Cersei gave them that power, and that's where all this mess started again. So I think that even if they find Cersei, guilty of some of the other things, they're not really going to find her guilty of incest, because if Tommen left the throne, then what would they do? So then we get Loras. We get a shot of him. The High Septon seems to be the arm here, asking him maybe to confess or telling him what his charges are. And on some levels, it seems like Loras could be the sacrificial lamb. It's sort of like they have all this power, they have all this spectacle, and they kind of need to bring somebody down. But I think Cersei's also going to get some sort of craziness. So, like, in the books, I would think that Loras would probably be able to confess and, take the black. But I don't know about the show. It might just be, one of those crazy, shocking moments that they have set up where they want something bad to happen to someone. Or, it's just sort of hard to tell. Like, obviously Marjorie is playing ball and pretending like she's really, on the side of the faith, but we know that she's not, because she passed the note to her grandmother and, told her to leave town, so she couldn't get caught up in this. So it could really go either way with those guys. People are obviously guilty, and it's just a matter of how they're gonna end up. So this was my favorite part of the trailer. It's the White Raven headed to Winterfell, and if you're not familiar with the Citadel and what the ravens that they only use the White Ravens to signal the change of the seasons. So pretty symbolic. The White Raven is flying to Winterfell to announce that winter has started. So, the name of the name of the episode is Winds of Winter, and there's a big scene that involves a White Raven in the books. I'm not sure if it's going to go that way, but this could be a symbol of something else that's happening in King's Landing with Varys, or it could be, just to show that things are different now. Winter is here. Even though they won the battle in the north, things will never kind of be the same. And then we see, Jon and Sansa. They're having a conversation about trust, and she is seeming to be still holding things back, not 100% sure. Like, if you remember in the beginning, Sansa and Jon were never close as siblings, especially if you read the books. Sansa always referred to Jon as her half-brother, and she was really, the one who was super into the idea of, like, trueborns and the difference, and, Jon was much closer with all the other siblings, so I don't know if they're trying to point that out, or if they're just trying to show that, they're in a tough situation, and, luckily they got this back, but they're going to have to trust each other for the future. And then we get old scumbag Walder Frey, and if you don't remember, he was the guy who betrayed the Starks with Roose Bolton, and held the Red Wedding in this exact same location. See Lothar there also from the last episode, and we see Jaime. He's there. They got River Run back. The Freys should be pretty happy at this point. Not really sure what Jaime's doing. I mean, according to his dialogue in this season, he is trying to get back to Cersei, but things are a bit different in his story in the books. So this is another thing that I'm going to talk about in predictions, but I feel like this is kind of maybe like, if we're following show logic and kind of just throwing out some of the other stuff in the book, that this might sort of start being, it's like starting to make sense a little bit. So then we have a nice scene in the Godswood at Winterfell by the Heart Tree. Sansa's there. Littlefinger approaches, and she asks, "What do you want?" And he replies, "I thought you knew what I want." And, if we just go off of the actual words there, what he wants is power. It's always been that. And he's been pretty clear about, making that known to her. There's a little bit of an insinuation that it might be that I want you to marry me and, we can rule together. Obviously, he was obsessed with her mom as a child and married her aunt to get the power that he has right now. But I'm not sure. That would probably just be some ongoing tension. I don't really see those two characters ending up together, but I do, it's clearly obvious that he wants to be as powerful as possible, and she's, I don't know, there's not really much in her way, because no one knows Bran's alive, in order for her to be at least temporarily in charge of the North as far as Winterfell is involved. And we don't really know what's going to happen with Jon, but right now they're an alliance, and for some weird reason Littlefinger and Sansa also are alliance, so they're two separate things. They're not all together, and I'm not sure that they will all meld anytime soon. So then we get this scene where we have Melisandre, Jon, and Davos. Davos found out finally that what happened to Shireen. He found the little stag in the fire where she was burned alive, and in the clip he's shouting at Melisandre to tell Jon what she did, and she has kind of a down and out look on her face, like she has had for most of the season. So, like, what, for one, I'm not really sure what they're, what is he asking Jon? Does he want Jon to, get rid of her? banisher, killer. I mean, it's hard to say, like Jon, first of all, Jon, just did a terrible job. I mean, I'm kind of saying this as a joke, but he just did a terrible job as leading that army against the Boltons. So like, I don't really, I mean, I guess he still has cred as far as, coming back from the dead, but they haven't really been emphasizing that much. And Melisandre's the person that brought him back. So it's like, I don't know. I really don't know what Davos is asking for here as far as, I mean, obviously he's asking for justice for Shireen, but at the same time, these three are kind of in bed together, and there's, I don't know what how this resolves. Melisandre doesn't seem to deny it or anything like that. Like it's obviously known that that's what happened. Just a really quick idea is like, well, she could obviously say that she had to give Shireen's life to bring Jon back, and then that would make everything hunky-dory. Let me get a really quick shot of Bran. As you can see, he's still up north. We didn't expect him to be anywhere else, and he looks to be by a tree, so he could be, accessing some visions. We imagine that he's still fine. He's got Mira and Uncle Benjen, who is the show's equivalent of Cold Hand. So, don't expect him. I don't really expect him to be in much danger in this scene, at least from this look of it. But I feel like he's, this is probably tied together to either the reveal about the Tower of Joy, or about just the general movements and the threat that the White Walkers pose. I mean, I kind of, 2 weeks ago, I didn't think that they would end the season without addressing both of those things. So not much has changed to make me change my mind, but I feel like we're going to get an idea about, I mean, there has to be something about the White Walkers. This is coming into the last, season and a half, basically. So hopefully we'll get a little idea of where they're at, what's going on, and also the payoff for the Tower of Joy. Of course, this could be something that they tease until next season, but again, we'll talk about that in the predictions too. But Bran's, this shot was so short. Like if you blinked your eyes, you wouldn't notice it. It doesn't show anything else, and even though this is probably one of the most interesting storylines for me, not a whole lot that you can tell from this. Then we got a shot of Dario talking to Dany, and my guess here is that she's leaving him in Marine, so she's telling him goodbye. She's getting ready to go off. It would be kind of consistent with things that happened in the book. They're not the same, obviously, but she has strong feelings for him, but she also wants to rule, and she knows that's her destiny. So she doesn't really foresee staying with him. Obviously, she can't marry him, because he's not of the right standing and all that. So I think that's where that clip points to. She needs someone to take care of Marine. She has really been concerned about that. That's why she's not in Westeros already. She sees those people as her children that she freed, so he would be the perfect person to stay behind and take care of that. Then we just get this random mystery guy. I'm not sure who it is. I'm not sure what he's doing. Could be Lancel, or it could be, the guy, the last wise master that's still alive. It's hard to tell. It's just the back of the head. If you have an idea, please tell me who you think it is. Then our last little clip is Tyrion, and he's giving Dany a pep talk about going to Westeros. And this is pretty straightforward. Not really sure if Dany will leave in this episode, but she's definitely getting prepared to. She has the Ironborn behind her. She has the slaver ships, and she has her council, Tyrion, plus let's not forget the dragon. So she's pretty much ready to go, and he seems to be just giving her a pep talk and, saying, hey, you're scared. That's normal. It's a scary thing. Let's do this. So as far as predictions go, I think we've all kind of learned a lesson as far as these wild fan theories and things that we see coming up. and learn that for the most part, what you think, the simplest explanation is probably the right one. And an example of this would be in the last episode. I was kind of thinking all week, what's the big twist going to be? What's the big twist going to be? Because it seemed too simple for Littlefinger to show up, even though we knew that we sent the Raven and everything, and that was likely to happen. I figured there'd be some other big twist, but there wasn't. That's what happened. Is Littlefinger showed up, and the Bolton army was defeated. Little John Mumber is done, and so on and so forth. So, as far as predictions go, I think one of the big things is the trial. Like I said earlier, I don't know that we can expect too much beyond what seems obvious. I mean, they're guilty. They're going to be found guilty. I would expect that that it'll be fixed in the sense that Cersei won't be found guilty of incest, and that Tommen will stay on the throne. That said, the other obvious thing that seems to be coming up is this idea of wildfire and her destroying the city. There's that scene that we saw way back in season 2, episode 10, where Dany sees King's Landing and the throne room's all burnt down. And, Cersei does have her back against the wall 100%, so we can imagine that she's not just going to take that lying down. And she doesn't have anybody that's on her side anymore except Qyburn, and Qyburn is just the kind of guy who could help facilitate setting off the wildfire that's below the Great Sept and King's Landing in general. So I do think that's going to happen. Will it happen at the end of this episode? I feel like there's a pretty good chance, and I just don't see any other way out for her. And most of the show, the show isn't as big on foreshadowing, but they have definitely foreshadowed this wildfire for a while. And in the books, it's backed up quite a bit by how crazy she actually is towards the end, and she does burn down the Tower of the Hand with wildfire at one point, which that hasn't been in the show, but there's a history of her burning shit down. So I think that'll probably happen. Not really sure about Loras. I'm sure Marjorie's not going to let him be a sacrificial lamb quietly. So that there's a lot of things that could happen there. The other two that I think are important to keep in mind when you're watching and you're thinking about what's going to happen is Bran and the Freys. So Bran is, like I said, I think he'll give us some insight into what's coming for next season. I think that's we're gonna see Dany getting ready to come over. We know that's gonna happen. We're gonna see things come to an end in King's Landing, and then that's all just set up really for the big battle with the White Walkers. And I think Bran will give us some insight into that. Will he give us some insight into Jon Snow's parentage? It's possible. I mean, they know the fans want to know that. I don't know how important it is based on where we're at and things right now, but obviously, fans will enjoy that of all types. It's a big question. It's something that's important. And then the phrase, and this is where I was talking sort of about the Riverlands coming into actually kind of making sense. Like last episode, they brought back these old storylines, and it wasn't really a great episode, especially the Riverlands part. And it just dawned on me whenever, and obviously the Arya storyline was pretty unsatisfying how it ended up in Bravos. So then it just occurred to me that maybe the reason that these things are there are so that Arya could get to the Riverlands and take a person off of her list, and that would be Walder Frey, I believe. I think that's pretty likely to happen. I think that there's, if you take all the book stuff out of your mind and you just look at what the show's been doing and you just follow show logic, I think there's a pretty good case that Arya wasn't there for no reason. She was there to be trained as an assassin, and she has this list. Walder Frey is on her list, and Walder Frey is right there in the Riverlands. So if she's headed back to Westeros, perhaps first she'll go to the Riverlands and she will dispatch of Walder Frey, and that will cause some chaos. Now, how that'll affect the Jaime storyline, I'm not really sure, because I expect him to go back to King's Landing. That's what he said he wanted to do, and there's a lot of things that could come from there. So I don't really expect him to just get stuck in the Riverlands either. So maybe he'll leave before, she'll show up, take care of him, and then everything will be messed up. And that would also tie into the fact that you have the Brotherhood there. I know Beric used to be on her list. I don't think he is anymore, but those storylines could kind of converge on them moving all back towards the north at that point. Some other things to think about. I think we haven't seen Varys. Varys, with the White Raven, it brings up the end of A Dance with Dragons, the book, and it brings up the idea of how he rolls in and assassinates a few key players. That could happen. I kind of hope it will happen, but he could also be doing other stuff that's unrelated. And Cersei, this whole idea of her burning down the city is obviously going to lead to the end of her character at some point, but don't forget about the Maggie the Frog, the Maggie's prophecy, because it's been really important in how Cersei has made all of her decisions for quite a long time, and all of her children are supposed to die before she does, and then she's supposed to be killed by the Valancourt, which is a younger brother, and we know that Jaime was born after her, so both Tyrion and Jaime are younger brothers. So I don't think we're going to see that happen. I mean, it could, but I think we're really going to just get the groundwork laid for everything moving forward in the future. And I think that the most doable thing is the whole Walder Frey Arya thing. So we didn't see them. Like I said, we didn't see Varys. So we don't really know, but they're not going to show everything that's going to happen. So all we know for sure is that these trials are going to happen, and we don't know how that's going to end up. But like the Sparrow is not going to come away clean, and it's probably unlikely that he's going to come away alive. So we'll see what happens. So let me know what you think. Leave some comments if you have any other questions. I might make a video about episode 10 once it's complete if I have time, so I'll talk to you then. Please like the video and subscribe.